Hey everyone, this is Robot Nerd here. You probably clicked on this project based on what it was titled, of course. Many of you are probably willing to hear, probably have been wanting to hear some updates regarding Scratch Leaves. Also, some of you may be wondering why the hell I'm sharing this project instead of Alex. Um, Last time, anything related to Scratch Leaves was announced, or anything related to Scratch Leaves ever happened, was back in June. And since then, a lot has happened. That I can say for sure. So in this I'm gonna try to keep it as short as I can, but also at the same time, I have so many things I want to say. So I'm going to go over what's been going on for the past few months, what's going on right now, what we're going to do in the future. So to start this off, we have to go back to May, when Alex shared the countdown. Now, the countdown didn't explicitly say that it was meant for episode 3. However, Alex did confirm with me behind the scenes that he meant it to be for episode 3. Mostly because he thought it could help him motivate finish the episode faster. Obviously we know that wasn't the case. And we know that the countdown was ultimately unshared in June. But that's basically all that most people know at this point. What people don't know is that I would say maybe about a week later, we had a conversation with Alex regarding Scratch Leaps and its status and the state of it, And following that conversation, Alex ultimately stepped down as director of Scratch Leaps. So that basically left a void, no pun intended, but that basically left a gap in our production. And ultimately, you can't really blame Alex, Scratch Leaps was never his project to begin with, it was always Wally's project. Alex was only doing Wally a favor by offering to animate the project, But ultimately, compared to his own projects, Alex will obviously have more passion in his own projects, right? I mean, this is just me speculating, he never confirmed it. I'm just speculating right now, so don't take my word for it. So after Alex stepped down, we spent some time thinking about who would be the next director. Maybe about a week, looking both internally and externally for qualified people. And I think it was around June 3rd. June 3rd, is when I announced to the rest of the Immersiverse people that I would be stepping in as director of Scratch Leaps. Now, this wasn't a decision that I took lightly, I took a few days to make this decision. This decision literally popped into my mind. Not this decision, sorry. This idea popped into my mind when me and Matt Jim were just talking one night about something. And it just popped in my mind, what if I took over Scratch Leaps? I talked to Matt Jim and Owen about it. They both supported my idea. They both thought I was a good fit for the director. Partly because ever since episode 2, I've always been pushing for the series to be completed in any shape or form. Yeah, and ultimately it was on July 3rd is when I actually announced it to the rest of the team that I would be stepping in effective immediately. So now within the span of 2 weeks, right, we had Alex stepping down, we had kind of a public mess with the countdown and everything, and we basically had to change the directorship within 2 weeks. So going into production of episode 3, oh my god, that was a mess. There was basically the workflow, the organization, everything was all over the place. Alex turns out Alex didn't animate a lot. Not a lot of the episode was animated. Some of the backdrops and assets were missing. But the biggest issue, oh my god, the biggest issue were the voice lines. There were like so many voice lines missing. It was an effort itself to just scramble around, like reaching out to the voice actors and asking for their lines. Like that was an ordeal itself. And ultimately, when you have a series as big as Scratch Leads that's been in limbo for over 4 years, you're going to have some recast because ultimately not everyone is going to stay on Scratch. So ultimately, people were recasted, which is something I'm going to go into later. Okay? Not right now. I just want to tell you guys like what's been going on right now. But yeah. So going to this episode, I knew when I stepped into that position as director, I was not a good animator. Like I couldn't like how most people like when they direct series they serve as lead animator. You know, Hunter Skelly for a series The Unfamous, Wally for Scratch Leaves, Hydro, pretty much almost any Scratch series. You know, the director is almost always the lead animator. The big problem for me is that I was not a good animator at all. Like I could not animate to save my life. So I actually pitched Magic like, what if as a director I just simply like managed the workflow around, like what if I just like broke up the scenes, assigned scenes to the animators, you know, just managing communication between the team. And he said, hey, that's a good idea, you know, you should go for it. That's basically the reason why I decided to step in. The only problem is that I had to put together an animation team, and that was a lot easier said than done, because at this point, you know, 4 years since Scratch Leaves episode 1 premiered, most of the animators have moved on. I know Caddy has gone to Yale. But basically everyone has moved on, you know. So finding animators to work on this series that so many people think is just never happening, like so many people have no faith in, was really hard. It was hard. Like it took me like maybe 3 weeks to gather all the animators I have right now. Yeah, but ultimately it was accomplished, you know, through the combination of like scouting for animators. Also, the casting project from April proved to be like really useful in finding some talent, you know. So you may be asking like, since that was like all in July, right? So now we're in August. You may be asking like, what's been happening right now? Like have we gotten anything done? And I would like to say yes, we have actually gotten a lot of the episode done. I in terms of numbers, I would say we're approaching a solid 75% of the episode being completed. Obviously this is just an estimate because, you know, like before I had a ChatGPT, you know, like to calculate, the episode progress meter, because like, you know, I had to like factor in like the length of the scene and then the scene type, you know, all that stuff. It's like so many factors, you know. It's not just like completed minus total scene, you know, it's not that simple. But yeah, basically current progress is very close. Much of the episode was animated in the month of July actually. I think by the time July ended we were like around 50% done. Currently now that's gone up to like around 75%, like I said. We are actually starting post-production this weekend. And speaking of post-production, we did make the decision to make episode 3 and episode 4 YouTube exclusive. And this was particularly sorry, I can't speak today. This is because of 2 reasons. One, when Alex animated his part of the episode, he didn't use Scratch, he used an outside software called Linearity. And when you try to import Linearity in Scratch, it just doesn't play well. You know, like, if you have a lot of frames, it's just going to crash the project. You can't even load the project, you know. So when I got the animation team together, I was faced 2 choices. One, I could force everyone to learn linearity to match Alex's style. Obviously, this would be insanely inefficient. 2, I could also scrap all progress made on episode 3 and just restart from scratch. You know, just restart everything, start from 0%. And obviously, I did not want to do that. I want to use what Alex had made, and incorporate that into the episode, because, he spent a long time creating his parts. So eventually we compromised. We thought that, what if we recorded, each scene, and then stitched them together in a video editor in post-production. So, and then release that on YouTube. The downside, of course, is that we can't release that on Scratch. But that leads into, the second factor, because compiling the scenes into 1 to 2 projects on Scratch would just make it unloadable with the number of sprites and assets that they are. There are some scenes that have maybe 10 sprites. So if you combine all the scenes together into one project, that project is you can't load that project. Simple as that. There's no way you're loading a project. So basically based on those two factors, we basically decided to make episode 3 and episode 4 released on YouTube exclusively. Now, earlier before, I mentioned recaps, right? Obviously, yes, because this thing has been going on for so long, we had to recast some people. Fortunately, there are a lot of people that we were able to get lines for, but for episode 3, we are recasting, 2 characters. Unfortunately, they are pretty big characters. The first one is Enigma, aka Crazy Coyote. We tried getting him in touch through, outside communications. That failed, so we had to bring in, someone else to voice act Nugget. To voice act Enigma, who is being recasted by Nugget. There we go. Sorry about that. But yeah, Nugget will be recasting Enigma for episodes 3 and episode 4. And the second recast is, unfortunately, it pains me to say this, but it is going to be Tiny Pig. Tiny Pig, we never had his lines. We never got his lines for episodes 3 and 4. And as we acting now, it is possible technically, because Hydro still has communication with both Tiny and Wally from what I last heard, but it will just take months. They're both really busy, and we just don't have time to wait for them. So ultimately Tiny had to be recasted. He's being recasted by Alex. So hopefully that ends up well. Now for episode 4, obviously Tiny and Enigma are going to be also recasted for episode 4. But episode 4, we are also joined by 2 other recasts. And for the main characters too. It's just insane. For episode 4, Wally and Nemesis will both be recasted. And the reason because is that we never got the lines for Wally and Nemesis for episode 4. And of course right now reaching out to Wally is just not worth it. He's busy. It's just going to take a long time. He might not even be checking his messages, Honestly, it's really not worth it. So which is why we decided to recast both Wally and Nemesis with Beeps, who is Eggs on Scratch. Who some of you may know him. He has been a long-time Immersiverse contributor with Chaos Squad, Scratchlet, and more recently with Scratch Leaps. So, I've talked a lot about episode 3, and you guys are probably wondering, Robot, that's wonderful, you're getting episode 3, a lot of progress has been made, but what about episode 4, is the same thing going to be repeating for episode 4, or going to take another 2 years to get episode 4 out? Well, the good news is we've thought of that. We've already been thinking about how we can approach episode 4, and we're already thinking ahead, with production for episode 3 is set to wrap up this month, maybe within a matter of weeks, actually. At the same time, we are starting episode 4 pre-production this month. And by pre-production, I mean creating backdrops and assets. And this is a massive advantage we had with episode 3, because going to episode 3, we had a lot of backdrops and assets already pre-made, from the past collaborators and animators, It was all sitting there, There were maybe some of them that needed to be made during production, but that was about it, maybe a couple of assets. Episode 4, on the other hand, does not have a lot of assets or backdrops. So I basically have to comb through every scene in the script and take a catalog of what assets and backdrops that we need to make for episode 4. So the plan is that we spend like around a month just dealing with the pre-production for episode 4. Then once we get pre-production done, that's when we start the actual production for episode 4. Now, I will say for episode 4, we do have a target date in mind, but I won't be announcing that, of course, because I don't want to get any of your hopes up, because we still don't have episode 3 out, I mean, we are getting close, we're still working on that, but it would just be extremely silly of me to announce the date I'm targeting for episode 4. I don't want to get your hopes up, guys, We've been through a lot, But yeah, that's basically what's been going on with Scratch Leaves for like the past few months. I know it's a big change in direction in directorship, in production in general. It's such a huge change. But I wanted to emphasize I wanted to basically tell you guys that I am truly dedicated to this project, and I've made a promise to myself that I would see this through. And that is a promise I intend to keep. Right? And I just gotta say, I just want to say, thank you to everyone on the production team who has dedicated their time and energy into creating this project that's been in limbo for 4 years, Especially, I wanted to shout out Beat and Tactical Corn, who are two animators that I have found myself to be consistently relying on, and they've both delivered in ways that I can't even imagine. Wanted to shout out Rocket real quick for coming in as kind of the advisor guy, the creative advisor, but also the guy who's helping us, kind of market this whole thing to the Scratch audience. But most importantly, I think I just want to say thank you to Matt Jam. He's the guy that he's been supporting me from day one. He's the guy who I first pitched this idea of stepping into, and he says, go for it, I believe in you. He's the guy that's always been believing me from the start, and really, if it wasn't for his early support, none of this would have ever happened. So, yeah, I'm really excited for you guys to see this episode, the amount of work that this production team has put in over the past month and a half, it's astounding, really. The dedication and the time. The fact that they've decided to, invest their time and energy into this, it just speaks volumes, I don't know the exact runtime of episode 3, because we haven't, actually compiled it into the editor yet. But I can say that, there are a lot of really cool sequences in the episode, especially the action sequences, they're pretty cool, pretty awesome, I gotta say. Probably one of the bigger productions that we made in the Immersiverse. Obviously, episode 4 will be bigger than episode 3, but there's just something about this grand scale of the episode, it's the amount of work, I just keep saying the same thing over and over again. I will say, when you watch the episode, you will notice the difference in how do I say this, in animation style, and yeah, basically, you will notice the difference in animation style, because we have so many different creators working on this project. But I think that's the beauty of this multi-creator collaboration project. You have everyone bringing in their unique style into this big project. Everyone leaving their own digital footprint in this project. So yeah, we do have a release date in mind, as a matter of fact, for episode 3. Obviously, I won't be announcing that right now. That will come with the teaser, which I won't say when, but it will be coming soon. So I would advise you guys to stay on the lookout for that. And yeah, I just gotta like, the final message is just, I can't wait for you guys to see Scratch Leaps, you know. And to the audience that's been here since, you know, 2021, 2022, I just want to say thank you for you guys for, like, keeping up with, like, our silly excuses, our long delays, procrastination, everything, basically. Like, thank you so much for you guys, like, having the patience to even stay here after all these years. You know, it really means a lot to me personally, you know, that there are people who I know from 2021 or 2022 that are still here on this website and are still waiting for some of these productions to come out, and that really means a lot to me. That is just something that I know that I have worth fighting for. So, yeah, that's basically everything that's been going on with episode 3, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Thank you, guys. Thank you for listening. Good night, guys. Have a great day.